Cossacks fell upon the city like storm. Beyond the dark waves of the Black Sea, they scaled the walls and found the terrified locals hiding in their mosque. One of them asked, "With what law and legitimacy are you attacking our peaceful city?" The Cossacks laughed. Then one Cossack shouted, "To the devil with your laws, families and parchments." Here the Cossack struck with all his force on the hilt of his sword. "This is my family, this is my right, legitimacy and law. This is my matchmaker and my best man." Welcome to our video on the Zaprozhian Cossacks, where we cover the history of Ukrainian Cossacks who established a reign of terror in the Black Sea, not unlike the Vikings of the Middle Ages. Before we get to the video, please subscribe. We are very close to hitting 1000 subscribers, which will allow us to make money off our content. So if you like our content, please hit the subscribe button. Enjoy. By the way, check our friends at Keystone History. He is making great videos on his channel, mostly about American history, but he also has videos on other stuff. I especially liked his video on Kavalalı Mehmed Ali Pasha of Egypt and his early life, so please check him out. His content is great. The once mighty Mongol Empire was fading away. With its fade, the lands of modern Ukraine entered a new phase that brought uncertainty and anarchy. And with those came the wild men to inhabit those wild lands, as the Polish called it. Thus, the Zaprozhian Cossacks started emerging in the 15th century in the banks of river Dnieper. These settlers were mostly serfs fleeing from the rule of the Lithuanian nobility, preferring the wildness of the steppes to the yoke of the nobles. The communities of runaway Serbs were joined by bands of Tatars and lesser nobles in 16th century, as single houses turned into villages and small towns. The birth of Zaprozhian Cossacks coincided with another phenomena of the steppe, the Crimean Khanate and the golden age of Tatar slavery. Spread out communities were easy targets for the Tatar raiders who would devastate the Cossacks. Hard times breed hard men. Throughout the 16th century, Cossacks evolved. Small communities united to develop a formidable defense against the Tatar raids. In 1530, a large fortress was built on the island Khortytsa and was named the Zaprozhian Sich. There, the Cossacks formed the Sich Rada, the Council of the Cossacks. Every Cossack was a member of the council and had the right to elect the leader of the Cossacks, the OTTOMAN. Attamans held supreme power, however they had to win elections every year. Under the first Attamans, Cossacks became a force to be reckoned with. They built impressive fortifications on the Dnieper and mastered the use of gunpowder weapons. In late 1500s, the newly formed Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth came up with a brilliant plan. The Commonwealth was suffering dearly due to the annual Tatar raids, and Cossacks, who were their subjects, though mostly on paper, seemed to be the perfect tool to use as a shield against the Tatars. The Polish-Lithuanian crown started funding the Cossacks. With the money coming from Poland, professional regiments of Cossacks were formed, who were armed and trained by the state to be professional troops. Cossacks built more forts, and the hetmanate even had a public education system by 17th century. The Polish crown's efforts, however, would result in something nobody had expected. Cossacks were slowly mastering the craft of boats and seafaring. They built long boats called chaikas. These boats were fast and could sail both in shallow water and in open sea, just like the longboats of the Vikings. These boats kickstarted the golden age of Cossacks. Starting from late 16th century, Cossacks started sailing into the Black Sea using the river Dnieper. Until that time, Black Sea was a Turkish lake. Ottomans had conquered Constantinople in the 15th century and since then the whole sea was under complete Ottoman control. Ottoman traders sailed the sea freely, without any worries of piracy or enemy activity. It was the Ottoman Mare Nostrum, and naturally the whole Black Sea coast was filled with rich cities with little defenses. Cossacks first started raiding the coastal cities in the northern Black Sea, and they slowly crept down south. In the early 1600s, they reached all the way to Constantinople. In 1614, they conducted their first major raid. Almost 100 Cossack boats attacked the city of Sinop and scaled its walls. The city was razed to the ground, plundered, and its inhabitants massacred. The next year, Cossacks came for Constantinople itself. Hundreds of Cossack boats stormed the imperial capital and razed Üsküdar, the Asian part of the city. They then proved their prowess by defeating the Ottoman navy that was sent after them. Cossacks consequently raided Constantinople 4 more times, in 1617, in 1621, 1624, and 1627. 1624 was especially bad. That year, Cossacks first burnt down Üsküdar once again. 2 weeks later, they came back. This time, they defeated the Ottoman navy and penetrated into the inner city. Dozens of villas and administrative buildings were pillaged and burned to the ground. And before the Ottoman troops could act, they got on their boats and vanished into the Black Sea. For more than half a century, Cossacks destroyed the Black Sea settlements. They ravaged the Balkans, sailing upstream from the Danube and northern Anatolian shores. Ottomans dreaded the Cossacks so much that their official documents never mention Cossacks without cursing them beforehand. No other power before had caused so much terror among the Ottomans, and it wasn't without its reason. Trabzon's population, for example, was reduced by 40% due to Cossack raids. In Varna, only 70 of the Christian households remained out of 700. The Christian population of the city was literally decimated. And that was a devastation on land. Black Sea was almost completely shut off to trade. Once flourishing trade hubs were now abandoned. The Ottoman Black Sea navy simply could not compete with the Cossack boats. Chaikas were too fast for Ottoman ships. Their short build also helped. Chaikas were very low on the sea, which made it possible for them to spot other ships before being spotted. However, just like anything, the Cossack Golden Age came to an end. Not so much due to Ottoman involvement perhaps, but due to problems back at home. The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was not satisfied with keeping the region wild and wanted total control of it. Over the years, most of the lands were given to the Polish or Lithuanian nobles, and Cossacks started holding less and less land. In late 16th century, several Cossack revolts happened against the nobility, which were suppressed, albeit with difficulty. The real upheaval started in mid-1600s. Commonwealth drastically increased the number of Cossack regiments during the Ottoman Wars. After the Battle of Kotin against the Ottomans, the Commonwealth disbanded thousands of Cossack regiments that it had recruited before, which turned out to be a disastrous idea. The land was now filled with men who were unemployed and knew how to fight, which is never a good recipe. In 1648, a man named Bogdan Khmelnytsky led a major revolt. Cossacks defeated Polish armies several times. However, on the long run, they lacked the resources to beat the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Thus, they agreed to be a vassal of Russia. With the Russian involvement, the Commonwealth was defeated. With the Treaty of Pereyaslav signed in 1654, Cossacks broke off and peace was achieved, at least for the moment. However, Cossacks had merely traded one master for another. As the Cossacks were preparing for another revolt, Ataman Bogdan Khmelnytsky died in 1657. His death led to a long period of civil war, further weakening the Cossacks. It took them almost half a century to settle their internal strifes, which they came out severely weakened. Russian influence over the region kept increasing and increasing. Finally, in 1775, Catherine the Great ordered the destruction of the Zaprozhian siege. The castle was surrounded by the Russian army and bombarded. The last stand of the Cossacks was nothing glorious. The defenders of Sich surrendered the city without fighting. It was burned to the ground and the Cossack hetmanate was officially dissolved. After all, this was an age of civilization, and the world no longer tolerated the wild lands. Thank you for watching our video. Please check our other videos, subscribe to our channel, and leave a thumbs up. We will see you in the next video.